Hello and welcome to the Empowered by Claudia podcast. I'm Claudia, a registered nurse, certified life coach, and founder of Claudia Sabina Wellness. This is a space where we get curious about the thoughts, beliefs, and experiences that shape how we show up in life. Through honest conversations, real coaching moments, and practical reflections, we'll explore how to feel less guilt, less pressure, and more like yourself. Let's dive in. Have you ever felt like you don't feel like yourself anymore? Or who actually am I now? It may be that life has changed. It may be that you have a health condition. It may be that you have a new diagnosis. It may be that you just want different things now. And you can start asking yourself, who am I now? Like, I feel like I've lost myself. And a lot of people experience that when they become a mother or a parent, or if they lose someone. So through grief, but also receiving health diagnoses. I remember this feeling of intense grief when I basically came to the realization that I could no longer work as an intensive care nurse. This was the only thing that I dreamed of my whole career. The minute that I had that placement in my second year in intensive care, I was like, this is where I need to be. I love this. This fills my soul up. This is what I needed to do. And that was really hard for me to come to terms with, that my body could not handle it. I was getting too injured, and to actually really change that identity of I'm an intensive care nurse. I had woven that into my sense of self. And what did it say about me that I could no longer do that? There definitely was a mourning process that it took me many years to come to terms with. I remember whenever a friend of mine was going through a breakup, I was like, make sure you take time to get to know who you are outside of a relationship before jumping into another one. And I wasn't so great at taking my own advice. Like, I thought I knew who I was and what I wanted out of life. But there was this narrative, which I think a lot of women my age probably also have, was this fear of being left on the shelf, of being a singleton, Bridget Jones era, that being single was the worst possible consequence. And it took me a long time to actually realize that being single is not the problem. The problem is settling for something that isn't right because you're so desperate to be chosen. I didn't take a step back and go, is this how I want to be treated? Is this person right for me? Are they treating me with respect? Am I treating myself with respect, or am I just taking any little bit of attention that I can get because my self-esteem is so low? And so I think on the surface, I was taking time between relationships. I had my own interests and stuff. But the minute that I got into a relationship, I would abandon anything that gave me joy and go full on into this relationship. And that was, a huge red flag looking back. But as ever, hindsight is 2020 vision, isn't it? And you can see the patterns of the, whoever picks me is good enough, not actually, you deserve so much better. And we take a lot of these beliefs from our childhoods, from those messages that we've internalized, whether that's from our family, whether it's from friendship groups, whether it's just from observing people, like people watching, maybe it's the media, and that actually, people only get married if they look a certain way, if they do everything for their partner without looking after themselves. So a lot of self-sacrificing, a lot of martyring, essentially. I'm going to make myself suffer in order to keep you happy. Well, that doesn't benefit anyone. And The person that is worthy of you would not want you to do that, would not want you to have those consequences. And to truly be yourself with that person, to feel comfortable. And this isn't a podcast about relationships particularly. It is about the relationship that you have with yourself and actually being aware and being anchored into who you are outside of those roles, that when we introduce ourselves and we're like, hi, I'm a mum of two and I'm working as a coach, I have a partner that I live with, like, I have 3 cats, man. You know, like, we do not necessarily need to define ourselves by those things, and it's really hard to step away from that and actually going, "I'm more than that. I'm more than these labels that I put on myself." Because when we lean so much into that fixed identity, it can be really hard when life naturally evolves to adjust. That first transition into motherhood. And you're like, who am I anymore? Because the things I liked to do before, I can't anymore. I was a single parent. I was like, well, I like to go to group exercise classes, but I have no childcare, so I can't do that anymore. I had problems with my hands, so I couldn't really craft. I really enjoyed crafting, but it was too painful to. And everything gets stripped away of like, what brings me pleasure and enjoyment? What makes me feel like me? And that can be really hard because you then feel like you are completely lost and there's not anything that can anchor you into that feeling of you. And I think it's more than looking at the external things, but it more about how it feels inside. And this is something I keep coming back to in my episodes. Is it's not necessarily about the destination, but it's about the journey. And actually, so what feeling does doing that craft, socializing, being with a group of people, releasing endorphins, what does that bring about in me? How does that make me feel? And can I replicate it differently? Can I pivot? Can I recreate that energy in a different way? So when my hands were really bad, was it actually switching to audiobooks rather than holding a physical book, which was putting my hands under pressure? Then I was getting pins and needles and my hands were going numb and it was painful and I couldn't focus on the book because it hurt too much. Is it that if you don't have childcare to be able to go out to something, can you do an online class where everybody is doing it at home together? Or is it doing a daytime one where you can bring a child in their buggy and do it together? How can we recreate that feeling inside that makes you feel like yourself? And I think the answer actually, I've got the episode title written as I'm recording it, and I'm like, the answer is I don't feel like myself anymore. But often we look at it too literally. We're like, but I'm not working in intensive care anymore. But actually, what did I love about being an intensive care nurse? Being a subject matter expert, having that one-to-one time with that patient, really getting to know them, getting to support them, getting to help them to heal, getting to know their families, you know, actually being able to spend that quality time, really feel like I was doing a good job. Well, actually, I brought that into my research nursing. That attention to detail, that knowing every step of that patient's journey, being there with them, really hands on. And again, in my professional nurse advocacy, really focusing on that individual in front of me and supporting them with what they needed. And same with coaching. So actually, that feeling like I was an intensive care nurse, the feeling is about that holistic care of that person, that individualized support. It's not about being an intensive care nurse. It's about how that care I deliver makes me feel. And the intensive care nurse is just the external. It's just the wrapper. But actually, what's important is what it feels like inside. And I'm taking that in. I'm experiencing this real time because I speak from the heart with these episodes. I don't plan in advance what example I'm going to use. It just comes up. So that was a real time revelation for me. But we get so caught up on that external identity that can make these transitions really hard because I guess it feels safer to kind of say, oh, this is who I am and what I do by putting a label on it rather than thinking about, well, how does that make me feel? What is that feeling? What is that giving you? And going back to the, I guess, hobby example of the crafting allows me to be creative, allows me to switch off my brain because I'm focusing. I was doing a lot of cross stitch. And you have to focus. You have to remember how many stitches am I doing? What colour are they in? And it meant I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was purely focused on that. And for me, that craft gave me escapism, probably a bit of meditation in that I was so focused of being mindful and in that moment. And that gave me peace. So actually, when my hands were really suffering before the operations, that crafting felt like a part of me was gone because I couldn't have that relief. And I think it's about how you then find, right, okay, so what is this giving me? And how can I recreate that in a different way? And there are many things that kind of force these massive transitions on us. It could be parenthood, work changes, being a caregiver to somebody, be having burnout. It can be going through things like the menopause when our hormones are all over the place. It can be having a diagnosis of neurodivergence or a health condition that it can really knock us for six. And we're like, well, who am I now? I don't feel like myself at all. And so actually, it's not that you're lost. It's more that it's an invitation for us to dive deeper, to explore that feeling and going, actually, so what is it? Diving down, what is it that makes me feel like me? And how can I think about this differently? And how can I get that in a different way that fits my life now? Rather than constantly looking back going, but I used to do X, Y, Z, and now I can't. And this illness, this disability has stripped that from me. Kind of acknowledging that life changes and that although it's really frustrating and, it is horrible when things are forced upon you that you don't have control over, but actually thinking, so what's the opportunity in this? What is the possibility? Can I actually, maybe I'll find something that I'm even better at. Maybe I'll find something that I enjoy, 10 times more. Maybe I'll meet new people. What if there's something better? What if this is where I'm meant to be? What if there's something else for us? Who are you really? Deep down, what does it feel like to be you? What matters to you? And actually, do we want to go back to how we were as a teenager, as a 20-year-old? Maybe feeling uncertain, maybe feeling unloved, maybe having no self-confidence? Or do we want to be ourselves, who we are, and learning from these things about what we do like and what we don't like? And actually, I don't need to go through those days. I'd hate to go back to school. I love learning, but I wouldn't want to go back to that school system and that awkwardness and feeling like I don't fit in. And yeah, that's not that's not where I want to go. And I think that for me, with age, that wisdom, that life experience, that life has many twists and turns. And actually, there are things that I'd rather hadn't happened in my life But I'm not discounting the learning and the good that has built. But it's, I guess it's kind of boxing something and saying, well, okay, that happened, but that doesn't have to define me. Yes, it may influence how I move forward, but I don't need to give it any more power. That I am so much more than that. So, yeah, what does it feel like to be you? And let's find our true selves and be truly you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Empowered by Claudia podcast. I hope today's conversation has given you something to reflect on and reminded you that you don't have to navigate this journey alone. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who needs it or drop me down a review. It means the world to me. If you'd like to explore your own thoughts, patterns, and possibilities with support, you can find all the ways to work with me in the show notes or at claudiasabinawellness.com. Much love.